Welcome back to The Exorcist Files, the show that gets demons to flee and helps set people free. I'm your co-host, Ryan Bethea, and with me is the man who makes the consecrated host, Father Carlos Martins. How are you?
Great, Ryan. Glad to be here. Hope everybody's doing well out there.
All right. Well, you ready to go back into probably the most popular case of season 2 and the most frustrating, which we'll get to why. But folks, we are going back to Eye of the Holder. Interesting case, huh, Father?
Yeah, certainly an anomaly, and thank God it's an anomaly, because, gosh, it really went off the rails and and shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, Father, all right, so let me just start with that. As you can say as an exorcist, right? And when I say 100% track record, I'm not saying you're at fault, but generally speaking, you know, as much as you want them to go well, these things don't always end well.
No, they don't, and they don't for a number of reasons, but certainly this one would be absolute catastrophic failure. And, you know, I know Father Wyatt. Father Wyatt is a good man, good priest, good exorcist, and I respect him a lot, and he certainly knows what he's doing. But at the end of the day, you know, exorcism is not, it's not a solitary endeavor. You rely on your team, and you make certain presuppositions of your team, and he did check in with his team and to make sure that the usual conditions have been followed, and frankly, he was lied to, and it ended up being just absolutely epic failure, like a failure at the level of a failure worthy of J.R.R. Tolkien.
Yeah. Why Tolkien, Father?
Well, I mean, because it's epic, right? Because it's now, you know, the latter state of things is much worse than the prior state.
Father, how, I mean, yeah, because this is obviously an anomaly, and you've said many times on the show, you absolutely insist everyone go to confession. Do you insist that you do it with them, or I'm curious?
No, not at all. In fact, I prefer not to.
Okay.
Because of the kind of relationship that we have.
Sure.
We have a professional relationship, and I, you know, I'm glad to be a pastor of them if the circumstances align themselves that way. But I would prefer that they have the freedom to be completely honest with their confessor, and sometimes friendships and professional relationships that we have kind of get in the way of that. And the most important thing is to be right with God, and whatever facilitates that, that's what you ought to do.
Sure. And so I guess, is it similar to physicians and how you're not supposed to operate on loved ones? Is it a similar precept? How you can help, obviously, but generally speaking, you don't want your spouse to do surgery on you?
Yeah, gosh, you know, I never thought about that. Is it similar? I mean, I guess it would be, because it ties in, you know, it brings in emotion, and it brings, you know, I guess a surgeon needs to be cold and calculated, and I mean, he has to be caring, but he just has to be surgeon in that moment. And would he do things differently and maybe less effectively if it was his wife? Possibly.
Yeah. It's funny, because I'm wondering, this is a complete sidebar, we'll have to, maybe we can cut this out, but for those initiated under the ordinariate of St. Peter, who are Episcopalian priests who are married and have spouses and then become Catholic priests, are they allowed to absolve sins of their spouse?
So would they be allowed? In an absolute sense, yes. But they are strongly encouraged not to.
Yeah. Okay.
Because now, I mean, she, you know, God forbid, you know, the wife of one is struck by a car. She's on the road dying. Okay, all the rules get thrown out. Necessity knows no law.
Sure.
But generally speaking, yeah, because it just, you know, many of her sins are probably going to be because of him, and it would risk doing damage to the marriage.
And let's be honest, in most marriages, right, it's probably the guy asking for forgiveness, right?
No comment.
All right. Well, so I'm curious, how often has this actually happened to you? I mean, I imagine your team is vetted, so they all understand the nature of this, but is this extraordinarily rare that anyone you know in exorcism ministry would dare to enter into forget the confession part, but just to enter into a deliverance session in a really significantly compromised state? Would you just say that honestly, most people you work with would just know better than
Oh,
that?
they would be very clear about that. But you see, certainly I've had different teams. I've lived in different places, and I've ministered in different places. So certainly I am very clear about that. I am very, very clear. If you're going to be in the room, you're going to be on the team, then you're going to hear my talk about what you need to do to prepare and what could go wrong if you don't do this. But see, there's a fine line. Like you want to inform people of the consequences, and you want to make them scared of those consequences. But at the same time, you don't want to make them terrified and and put the power of the devil kind of on loudspeakers blaring into their ear. So there, there is a reasonable limit in which you kind of stop. You state what the consequences can be. You tell them rationally and straightforwardly, here's what can happen if you don't. Is that enough to put to shake them out of a slumber? Well, you just, I think 99.99999% of the time, yeah. But once in a while, you have a goof named Gary, and he comes along and he's just compromised by his own sin and starts rationalizing and I'll do it, and just he usurps the divine order of things.
Sure. Yeah, it seems maybe it's a terrible analogy, but I think of the instruction we used to go whitewater rafting every summer, and our guide would be like, look, we're going to go down some, we went some serious rapids, some F4s, and he was like, look, you're going to have a great time. Obviously different exercises. He's like, but it's going to be exhilarating, it's fun, but I need you to listen to everything I say, right? Because there will be a few of these, right? That if you're dumb, right, and you stand up and you're trying to do something fun, he's like, you can get trapped in this, and there's a lot of rocks, and this could go bad very quickly. But stay close, follow the rules, we're going to be just fine, right? And I imagine there's maybe something similar to that.
Yeah, and you see that there is the odd person, right? Human beings are funny. They kind of gain a false confidence, right? I've sized this up. I know it. I know the playing field. I know my skills, and I know the obstacles that I'm facing, and I can manage them. I can maneuver that. And that's the point where, you're stepping off a cliff and not knowing it.
Yeah, it almost makes you think too of the people who work with like wild animals, and they talk about how beautiful they are, and they, especially like training, you just never lose sight of the fact that you're with, a lion or a bear, and that thing can turn like that, right?
They're just fine for me behind a cage or on TV. That, no problem. Never had a desire to pet one. Don't care. Don't want to. My life is just fine without having that experience.
So hopefully you never had to do deliverance back when Siegfried and Roy at their prime. R.I.P. One of them. All right, so Father, actually, I'm going to get to the cold open later because obviously Justin's behavior, chilling and very dark. But let's go to just the elephant in the room, the mortal sin in the room. So you have a situation of a last-minute exorcism change. You have a holder who is asked to come in and is in this episode in the midst of an affair and knows he's in a terrible situation, has not confessed it, etc. And in the episode, who knows why someone doesn't actually do what they're supposed to do, but it seems that he reasoned, I will do this later for two reasons. One, I have a deep relationship with the priest, and so maybe Father Wyatt wasn't his spiritual director, but he was so close that he just didn't feel, there's a shame in confronting that. And the other side of, well, I'm doing the Lord's work, right? And I'll take care of this. And how many of us think, well, I know I got to deal with something, but I got to go do this first.
Sure. Yeah. So maybe let's start at the beginning and to make sure that everybody's aware of the case, or at least the genesis of the case. The case involves a teenager in his late teens. He joins a gang after having lost his father. There's a blood oath as part of that gang initiation, and he becomes demonically compromised, which is discovered in the fact that he has an uncontrollable temper that is emerged. He's beat up his mother badly, so badly she requires hospitalization. And in the midst of this beating, every single photograph of his father in the house cracks down the center of the pane. So a perfect, even crack in all of the picture frames involving his father. So there's a calling card there that is left, an indication of the demonic, and progressing things to their end. An exorcism is scheduled by Father Wyatt, the exorcist. This was not my case, it was one of his. Father Wyatt is a sound man, good priest, seasoned veteran, and he scheduled a session, but he had a couple of members cancel out on him, that a couple of holders, and so he was one short. So he scheduled an extra one. Not only did he cancel, but one of the main ones did as well. And so it's either cancel the session for everyone and take it up on another day, or see if he can find a replacement. So he calls Gary, and Gary accepts. But what Father Wyatt doesn't know is Gary, when he calls him, is in the midst of an extramarital affair. He's in the midst of sin. And so in between that moment and the session the next day, there's no time for him to go to confession elsewhere. And for him to go to confession to Father Wyatt, he's going to have to disclose what he has done, this cheating on his wife. Father Wyatt knows he and his wife, and he doesn't want to, he's afraid of changing Father's perception of him, which is understandable, but is absolutely brutally stupid under the circumstances.
How often have you had to deal with that with a priest, with friends who have had moral lapses, and they just, they don't want to talk to you, and they're just, because I know you don't do confession generally with your friends, right?
I certainly can, but we don't talk about the contents. So even, here's what I say about that. Human beings are sinners. They're broken. And the best of us sin. And so you have to go to someone, you have to go to a priest for that confession. So most priests that priests go to, they know them. So that's just the way it is. But you encounter, and it's understandable, that you will have a shame at admitting your brokenness to someone whom you know. And you think, well, is this going to change his perception of me? And you just have to face that. Under the circumstances, you do. Now, Gary could have done something else. He could have stopped the affair at that moment, gone early that morning, found a priest, gone to a rectory, and just say, hey, I need this to happen. And but he chose not to.
Yeah, and he could have actually, one thing, because I found this interesting, you mentioned to me a while back that, one of the things about confession, because it's such a sacred thing and you want to keep it so secret, right, that you actually instruct people like, hey, just give me the sin, right? Because even the details, which might be well-intentioned, and humans always want to just if I'm telling you I did something wrong, I'll always present it with, well, Father, you need all the facts, and you're like, no,
don't need the facts. This is an act of reconciliation between you and God. God knows the facts, knows the details. If I need any more detail to get an appreciation of the situation, I will ask you for them. But basically, what did you do wrong? And my job is to just be a conduit of the Lord's grace, period.
So here's a confession. I've spent most of my life trying to be cool. At night, I'm a hot sleeper, and staying cool always helps me sleep better, which is why I'm very excited to dig into my new Casper mattress with snow technology. I just got it. And while it takes a minute to really get to know your mattress, the technology is very interesting. We haven't had a mattress sponsor on this show, and that's mainly because I haven't needed one. But when it came time to finally, quote, put to bed my old one, I started doing my homework, and I discovered Casper's snow technology. It's a specialized cooling system built into select mattresses and pillows designed to prevent overheating, and it features a 3-phase design consisting of an instantly cool-to-the-touch cover, heat-absorbing phase change material, and heat delete bands that continuously pull excess body heat away, supposedly for 12-hour plus. Now, sleep is highly subjective, and there is no one-size-fits-all for everyone. But if you are a hot sleeper, you may want to look into this snow technology. Casper's mattresses are built to be durable and long-lasting, so you're not replacing your mattress every few years. Their products are designed to withstand the test of time, maintaining support and comfort over the long haul. Casper has a 100-night risk-free trial, so you can give Casper mattresses a try risk-free, although with 110,000 5-star reviews, they think you'll love it. In fact, Consumer Reports rated Casper's The One mattress the highest rated foam mattress out of 99 other mattresses. So you might even say they had 99 problems, but sleep ain't one. Remember, the day will always end well with Casper. Right now, save up to 20% on mattresses and up to 25% on everything else when you go to Casper.com. One last time, that's Casper.com, and save up to 20% on the mattress you deserve. There's an old saying from a very famous athlete: eat good, look good, feel good, play good, they pay good. And friends, it's true. You want to eat well so you can do well. And to that end, you should consider Forkful. Now, Forkful has meals that prioritize flavor, function, and health. No seed oils, chef-cooked fresh, never frozen, ready-to-eat meals made with high-quality premium proteins like grass-fed bison, one of my favorites, wild-caught salmon, and fresh vegetables. It's a delicious menu that fits your lifestyle and meals and has all the options: gluten-free, dairy-free, keto, plant-based, GLP, low-carb meals. Anyone who's ever tried to host a party in Los Angeles knows how many different options you have to have. Eating well doesn't need to be complicated either, because they come fully prepared and there's no meal prep, cooking, or cleanup, just clean flavors, and it's ready in under 3 minutes, delivered right to your door within 24 to 48 hours. I love lean filet mignon. That's one of my favorite things. And here's the deal. I actually really like to cook. Cooking is an outlet for me, but there are plenty of times I don't have time to cook. And we all know this: when you don't have time and you get something quick, it's usually not the best thing for you. And I remember one time I hired a trainer for a couple months, and he challenged me to do 1 week and eat super nutritious, no quick food. I literally had grass-fed bison, wild-caught salmon, fresh vegetables, and within 1 week, he could tell the difference. I didn't even tell him. He's like, "You've been eating perfectly for a week." So I wonder sometimes, if we just dedicated a set period of time to eating super healthy, what would happen? And to that end, if that's you and you're at a nutritional fork in the road, you should try Forkful. Explore their plans and menu of fresh, ready-to-eat meals at forkfulmeals.com and use code EXFiles to get 50% off your first order. That's forkfulmeals.com/EXFiles and use promo code EXFiles for 50% off. Thanks to Forkful for sponsoring this episode. So what he could, and it's funny because this seems like a lie that many of us deal with, and not just in this extreme circumstance, but the enemy seems to present, oh, you know what? There's no way you can do this. So, you know what? Just go serve God. I mean, it's actually, if you really think about this case, I think it's actually a pretty brilliant deception that, you know what? Father Wyatt needs you, right? You got to go do ministry. And in reality, what could have happened, and I'm actually curious to hear, say someone comes to you before an exorcism and actually does a confession, and it's a serious thing. And they were like, I did this, and you don't know the details. Would you maybe say, you know what, actually, I don't think you're ready? Or would the willingness to confess, be enough to get him in the room? Because I could see a world where he's like, if I tell him, he won't let me help.
Certainly, I think it would depend on what is confessed. But in terms of the guilt, in terms of legality at the spiritual level,
right?
The confession would be enough, because as long as there's contrition on the part of the penitent, then that penitent is, by definition, then in the kingdom of God, right? As long as the confession was done well, was done honestly, and there's an absolute desire to be in the grace of God at that moment, done. So for the case, for the matter of them serving in that case, in that room, that would be sufficient.
Yeah. But what would be interesting is, and I guess this should be a general discernment, because say you were in Father Wyatt's position, right? And say one of your holders, comes to you 20 minutes before game time, couldn't get anywhere, and sits down with you and confesses something so grave that...
Like he's kidnapped someone and he's holding a person...
yeah, sure. Obviously, it's extreme, but
imprisoned in his house.
Say that happens, right?
Okay.
I guess I'm curious, what are the lines for which, and I know this is so case by case, but what would be the lines you would prohibit someone from saying, you know what, I don't want you to go in it, even though you're forgiven, you just probably aren't in the mental state to do this.
But he can't. Yeah, well, sure. That's one part. But the fact that he can't get his life right with God without restoring that victim that he's kidnapped.
Sure.
And so I don't want him in the room, until, there could, could I imagine there be genuine sorrow in him, like he's done this act, he's kind of talked himself into doing this act, and now he regrets it. But he still has this person. He has this person locked up. Well, heavens, you weren't right with God until you release this person, so this person go back to his or her family.
So if Gary had just had contrition, now I know it's a total hypothetical, but if Gary had,
Contrition in Gary's situation would be absolutely sufficient.
but it would be an interesting question to be, because again, tell me I'm wrong here too, but also when you go into the room, you know how even though you're forgiven, so at a legal level, right,
Yeah.
you're cleared. Would you say also as a priest that, because there seems to be, and I know I'm a little outside my expertise here, but when humans do sin, right, there is a tendency to feel distant from God, even though you might know I'm forgiven, etc.
Sure.
Would you maybe say, you know what, if someone came to you with an extreme sin like that before, say, look, you are legally fine, but I'm also a little like, I want someone who's feeling really right with God to go in there, and just because you're legally cleared, you might not be in the headspace to take on the ancient adversary. I could see a world where you're not feeling tip top coming into battle because that morning you woke up next to someone who's not your wife.
Yeah, totally. I understand. This I wouldn't. It's being honest. It's not as clear to me that it would be as black and white as me spitting out an answer. Why? There's a ton of other factors here. There's the fact of Justin, the kid who is possessed, needs help. Yeah, this is not an emergency exorcism. It was planned, but for us to cancel is a big deal, because it means that he's going to be delayed in getting help. It means that all of these people who have made time to be here for the session, well, that time is wasted. And all of your helpers, all of your assistants, everybody who's in the room, this is a volunteer position. You're relying on their goodness, generosity, and yeah, would they understand? For sure, something comes up one time, but you want to also honor them, honor their time.
Sure.
So there's all of these factors at play, and you have to make a decision in the moment. And I don't know what decision I would make, given this situation. Like, just looking at this academically right now.
Sure. Let me ask you this, Father. So obviously we have to change a lot of things in these cases. So obviously there may be some discrepancy here, but generally speaking, what is considered the timeline of a emergency exorcism? Because what happens here obviously is it happened a little differently in the actual case, but generally you do have situations, right, where there is a sort of need to move quick. How do you balance? I guess what's the thinking of how to balance expediency, but also the seriousness? You want to make sure you've got the right team in place.
Yeah. Well, so I want that right team in place. So I want to be able to have that all scheduled, locked. We have the location, we have everything we need to do the session. But also I see a value in, even if I have that scheduled right now, somebody comes in requesting an exorcism and is manifesting right now, I see a value in delaying it and saying, we're gonna do it on this date and at this time.
On your terms,
right? Because it's my charts, right?
That's
So
correct.
so I don't know what's going on in that situation right now. Is the devil really, really strong in that moment? And he's picking that moment because he has the ability at that time to really inflict some damage.
Sure.
So you know what? I'm going to say no right now, but Tuesday at 11 a.m. is a good time. Seeing it. Well, Father, can't you do it now? Nope.
What is
Why
the
not?
timeline? And so generally speaking, I know it varies, but like, would you say is from meeting to actually getting something scheduled, if you were to just really try and aggregate and make an average, would you say, is it a few days generally, or is it just, or in some cases it weeks out?
Depends on the schedule, and all of us are really busy. So generally longer than that.
Oh, really? Okay.
Generally longer.
And is that because we've talked about the shortage of exorcists? So obviously this is a very extreme example. So, but generally speaking, if Father Wyatt, as in this case, Father Wyatt probably has worked on this for a while, and then it's a last minute thing, and you don't want to move something that's been planned for weeks, and so you want to try and get someone there.
Correct. Let me share. This is something that happened to me when I was stationed in Houston, Texas. So I was at Catholic Charismatic Center, and we had it was a very busy day of ministry. There were a lot of confessions. There was a retreat going on. And then there was a parish event in the evening. And the place has a very large foyer. There were lots of people gathered. And all of a sudden, some folks come in, kind of the family of this young lady in her early 20s. And she's just kind of very dramatic. a really dramatic moaning coming around, and they come forward and they say, "Father, she's seeing dead people. You need to do an exorcism on her." And she stops her moaning to add, and they touch me, and they touch me. And so I saw this situation. There was clearly an attempt to make it much more dramatic than what it needed to be. I sized these people up, but none of this looks authentic to me. Okay, why don't you come in Tuesday at 11? I forgot what time I told them, but and I'll pray for you then. Well, can't you do it right now because they're touching? No, I can't do it right now. Well, what are you? You're not doing anything right now. Yes, I am. I'm visiting with my people, and that's important. And you're not going to veer me from that. So they left in a huff, angry. I never saw them again. Wow. So if they really wanted help, right? So that's not what they wanted. That was, whether they intended to or not, that was the enemy bringing a disruption into or attempting to. And I said no.
Moving along. So Father Wyatt had planned this for a while. Last minute, Gary comes in, doesn't get confession, knows something's wrong, justifies it to himself. Now, one thing, and I want to roll a clip here. So they, actually, before we do that, I want to talk about Father Wyatt does ask him, right? So he does direct. Do you direct? I mean, everybody in there. So is it unsaid, or do you also just, hey, once again, reminder?
If this is a seasoned veteran team,
they know.
I don't have to do that. Just like I don't have that. Hey, did you brush your teeth this morning, or am I going to have to smell your breath in there? You just presume things because you're dealing with mature adults. And look, if somebody is part of your team, these are people you trust. You trust their integrity, their intelligence, their commitment. They're walking with Christ. They have a sincere prayer life. And we do things as a team. Like we'll do a retreat together. We'll have an afternoon dedicated to formation, where I give them some teachings and things like that, or I'll bring in somebody to be able to do that. So look, it's a given. Now, in this case with Gary, Gary was a big guy, strong guy, athletic guy, great guy to be a holder. Was he as mature as the others in the room? No. And Father Wyatt knew it. He wasn't quite as mature, but mature enough. He had been, a Catholic and practicing his faith for many, many, many years. And Father Wyatt knew that. But obviously he wasn't quite as mature.
All right, we're going to roll a clip here. And just for context, for those who don't remember, Hot Stuff was the pet name that was exchanged between Gary and his the woman he was having an affair with. And we're going to find the demon knows that too. Let's roll that clip.
A homeless man approached him from behind, asking for money.
Hey, brother. Can you help me out?
No. Look, I'm sorry, I don't have my wallet on me, but, here I think, yeah, here you go.
$1? What can I do with this?
Sorry, that's all I have, man.
Too good for me? Have an ATM card?
Wow. Okay, look, man, I was just trying to help. Chill, dude. Nut job.
Hey! You must think you're something. Hot stuff.
What did you say?
You must think you're hot stuff. But your time is coming. Oh, your time is coming.
What is that?
Oh.
What are you talking about?
Give me $1.
What? What do you mean my time is coming?
Hello, men. Father Martin's here. People ask me all the time about how to keep the enemy out of their lives. Obviously, you want to stay close to God and develop a prayer life, but there's something else that's crucial. You need connection to Christian community. I know that that's not always easy to get, but here's an easy way to get it. On August 12th, Exodus 90 starts their St. Michael's Lent Challenge, and I absolutely recommend you give it a go. They'll be working through the book of Daniel this year, one of my personal favorites. Now, I'll warn you, it's not a cakewalk, but the spiritual journey rewards sacrifice. And if you give this a go and go all in, I guarantee you will see God respond. So download the Exodus 90 app today and join the St. Michael's Lent Challenge, which begins August 12th. The link is also in the show notes. Exodus 90. You won't regret it. Over 250,000 men have participated, and over 99% have stated they have found greater freedom through it. Join the St. Michael's Lent Challenge. You won't regret it.
Skincare. I say it often. There is nothing that will make you look 20 years younger. If there is, let me know. Well, I guess AI could do that, but there are things that you can use to help your skin look and feel younger. And that is one reason why I love OneSkin. Now, I've been actually using it for a while, and I've honestly gotten compliments on my skin. And no, that's not just from family members or those who benefit from me financially. Even a stranger once commented on this to me. OneSkin's results are backed by 4 peer-reviewed clinical studies, over 10,000 5-star reviews, and they have been recognized by Bloomberg as a leader in skin longevity. You don't really need a complicated routine to help with great skincare. So OneSkin is built around something called OS1. Sounds pretty epic, right? Like OS1. It's like some super secret compound they use in a movie or something. Well, OS1 is OneSkin's peptide designed to fight zombie cells, which contribute to visible signs of aging, those fine lines and dullness that creep in over time. Now, the biggest way to keep your skin from aging too fast is sun protection. That is the most important thing. So wear sunscreen, don't get too much sun on your skin. That is the number one thing you can do. But then after that, you can try OneSkin products. Now, the biggest way to keep your skin from premature aging is to use sun protection. That means hats, sunscreen. That is a big deal. Do that and you can protect your skin. But then you can also try OneSkin products. And I really do think it makes a difference. In fact, OneSkin has a new limited edition summer bundle that will have you covered. It has their skincare and SPF essentials paired together, so you get the OS1 peptide and help reverse the visible effects of UV aging while you're getting SPF protection from new damage. It's a complete system to summer-proof your skin, so make sure you check these out before they're gone. Born from over a decade of longevity research, OneSkin is helping you unlock the healthiest skin now and as you age. For a limited time, try OneSkin with 15% off using code EXFiles at oneskin.co/xfiles. That's 15% off at oneskin.co using code XFiles. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Support our show. Tell them we sent you. All right, so Father, obviously Gary gets targeted very early on by this, and to the rest of the group, they notice it, but they just assume he's a new guy. And of course, you're in the room, the demon's just yelling at everybody, right? I mean, it's taking shots, and it might pick someone just because it has someone it's picking on, because they're liars. You can't necessarily infer anything from that, right?
No, and certainly, I mean, the demon called them hot stuff. They didn't know that there was a hidden meaning, but they didn't know the hidden meaning behind it. So, it might be, somebody. Usually, in my experience, my team members don't typically get picked on individually, and I can't remember too much of that happening. Even other exorcists mentioning that, but it has, it for sure has, or just, one will slam a card down on the table by saying something like, what did you think of what we did to your car this week? And let's say a tree fell on the car. I'm making up that example, but this would not be outside the realm of possibility.
Oh no, we've had Dave Van Vickel has been on the show a couple of times. He shared, he tragically lost his wife. And he said one of the first times he went back in the room, the demons basically yelled at him and mocked him for that.
Yeah.
And I thought that's just, and then the more trite example is he mentioned stealing something from a museum when he was younger.
Yeah.
And those things constantly tell him, you stole a pterodactyl. And I just find that very interesting that they pick on, and that's another reason you want to be.
You know how I would respond to it? I stole a pterodactyl. You surrendered eternity. Who's the stupid one?
Good comeback. And I can get my own, I bought my own pterodactyl now, right?
Right.
That's right. I have my own. So he's getting picked on, etc. And they say, and then they take a break. Once again, Father Wyatt checks in with him, just to see. And once again, everything's okay. So he's getting picked on, etc. You wouldn't necessarily stop it or anything. You'd say, all right, well, it's just par for the course.
It's not, it doesn't sound that serious at this point, so I wouldn't see a need for intervention. The demon's going to come in and begin his kind of comedy act, if you will. He's going to start picking on things, picking on people, asserting his dominance, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
There's an immediate, I'm here, make way for me. It's the image that he's trying to build. So he starts that. He starts that building.
Yeah. Demons know what hot stuff means. No one else knows what hot stuff means.
Well, not in that room for sure. Yeah,
Man.
not in that room. They know that hidden meaning.
All right, so let's get to Justin. So he's dealing with, there were two main adversaries here. There was a spirit of abandonment, and then there was another spirit that identified itself as Leviathan. So let's start with the fact that one of the big entry points that we found out was there was tremendous wounding. Justin's father passing away and overdosing from drugs, and he got involved with a gang. And as part of that process, he had a ritual to join. I'm curious, Father, in your ministry, I know you've done some prison ministry, etc. How common is sort of the rituals and some of the extreme stuff that Justin mentioned in this, and how much is it tied to reality of what you've seen?
It's absolutely common, absolutely common. So there's a ritual that has the character of a religious experience, a religious action, an initiation that is spiritual in addition to social. So one is initiated into a kind of realm, if you will, and especially into gangs that have a Latin American connection. That is really common, and they will have a deity. They'll have a saint, which is a false saint. So a demon in disguise to whom they consecrate the gang or the gang's activity or its individuals or this particular individual. So it's an act of the occult, and so it has there is a bridge that is lowered down for a demon to cross. There's a door open, and so in the case of this, so the initiation is a deeply visceral act.
Yeah, we have it here. It says that he was blindfolded, thrown into the trunk of a car, driven to a house, taken to a basement, and then a gun put in his face. And then the room had grotesque art. There was an altar with a candle and a skull. And then they made him cut his hand and let a drop of blood fall on the skull while repeating some of the oaths and essentially something to the effect of, I no longer exist individually, but as part of this collective whole. So a blood oath.
Yeah. So you have there a religious action, and you just given rights to the demon, and we saw in him that the demon came to collect those rights, to make good on them, and a possession suit.
So Father, you should stick to the Sharks or the Jets if you're going to be in a gang.
You bet.
You got that reference, right?
Nope.
West Side Story?
No. Never saw it.
Okay. So there's another demonic entity that appears in the room, and that is another entity known as Leviathan. And so there's this weird interplay between the two of them, and one coming in and one coming out. So we've talked a little bit about this, Father, but how often are you speaking to multiple demons, and how often are you interfacing with one at a time? And are you trying to isolate them separately? And then
we don't want to talk to multiple demons. We want one. And in fact, if we, to the extent possible, we want to get rid of the peons, the lesser demons, and go to the main guy, the main possessor. Why do we want to do that? Well, you're wasting your energy on a peon. But sometimes you're just not able to get, you have to exorcise that peon for whatever reason, that there's some rights that he is able to be there. That's not always the case. So sometimes there's just, the main possessor is able to get a peon, puts that peon in front of him. So all your prayers and actions, he's taking the punishment for it.
Well, that's right. And so in this one, Leviathan actually says, I was looking for the language, which is so colorful. And the exact wording was, Father Wyatt said, "Oh, your friend's gone, right?" And he says, "He's not my friend. I command him. I am his general superior, and traitors get theirs." So in this case, the other one had been let go. And so now the other one's placed up there. So they'll, I think you've said this multiple times in the show, but they'll bicker a lot, right? And they'll toss each other and, to the flames, so to speak. And
the lower level demons do this. As you go up the scale, there are demons that don't bicker, and they command a much stronger presence. Like, there's much more order in the room. There isn't the kind of like falling apartness that you might see Like bickering is something that is not on the script.
Yeah.
They don't want that to be on the script.
Yeah. Father, how often, so obviously you have an explicit doorway open with the blood oath. The abandonment thing is something we wrestled with in the case of Lena as well, when her dad left her and actually a demon masqueraded as her dad to let her back in. How prevalent is this this wounding from parents, parental wounds of abandonment as far as your ministry and what you've seen?
It's not uncommon. It's a typical way that humans get hurt. It's a typical wound. So I think that's the only thing I can say about that. I wouldn't have anything to offer in terms of like what demons are connected with that. Well, I would think all of them could be connected to that type of wound. So I don't, I hear, watching certain videos on YouTube today, you have folks who claim to be exorcists or demonologists or claim to have a knowledge in this area. And they provide this information that is just absolutely absurd. If it's abandonment, it's always this demon, or this demon. It's one of those three. How do you know? And who told you that? Where in scripture, where in tradition, where in the deposit of revelation did you obtain that information? You didn't. And so where did you get it from? You got it from the demons. And this is a problem. So you're going to the father of lies to get truth. That by definition is an act of the occult. It's an occultic act, and then you're taking the information they've given you and you're disseminating it. Guess what? You've just become their agent. You're now disseminating what they have given you. Among other things, what this means, what this entails is you are in relationship with them, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, you've become their agent.
Well, the exorcism progresses. By God's grace, Justin does some forgiveness and is able to find freedom. However, in probably the most charged and infamous moment in this entire case, Father Wyatt, having removed all the rights from Leviathan, casts him out. And at that moment, poor Gary has some problems happening. So there's a billion questions that come up with this, but at that moment, suddenly Gary drops to the floor, and as one of the holders is now compromised, starts throwing people around. Father Wyatt gets punched in the face. I mean, all hell breaks loose, etc. So, all right, so Father, why don't we go to probably the most infamous moment in this entire case? The one that gives us the most pause and just is the most chilling. Let's roll the clip.
What's happening?
Gary! Gary, are you okay?
Much better here. Roomier in here.
Gary!
Can't wait to fuck all my honeys.
Gary, help us! Please, God, no.
And just like that, the game changed. Father Wyatt had a massive problem. One possession gave way to a much stronger possession. He didn't want to believe it, but he knew what had happened. The demon had jumped into his holder.
I mean, honestly, poor Father Wyatt. He gets, holder goes down. He gets punched in the face. Poor Gary too. So Father, a million questions come to mind with this. So maybe we start with this because people might describe this as a phenomena of jumping. But you've corrected very clearly that demons, what we might experience, it seems to be jumping from one to another, or like the movie The Exorcist, where you have Father Karras, famously saying, come into me instead, right? Which we would never do. I'm curious, demons are obviously not omnipresent, but what was happening in that moment? Why did it appear like jumping, for lack of a better term, Phil?
As a sign to the others that are there. So demons are not omnipresent in the same way that God is, but they are omnipresent within space and time for all intents and purposes. So they're all around us. So a demon doesn't have to travel across the universe to be present from point A to point B. He's present at both points at the same time because he's not limited by space and time. I mean, a way to imagine this is imagine all space and time existing inside every angel simultaneously. And that's just kind of how it is. And it's odd for human beings because we're wired to see things spatially. And we're wired to experience events happening in succession. But that is just not the case with angels. So, and demons being angels. So we can't fall into the trap of grading them in their activity by our experience, but perceiving that it happens according to our understanding, because it simply doesn't.
So Gary gets up and is now full-blown possessed, and the demon is just lording its new home. So let's roll this clip.
Jesus, help Gary now. Gary, I'm talking to you. Renounce the affair. Leviathan, I command you to let Gary speak.
My hands will do the speaking. You robot one.
Gary's out and about now, and just the demon is bragging about its new digs. New digs.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because the reality, though, is that it's not new, right? Because as Gary started having and delving into that sin, right, he had already technically started a relationship with the enemy, right?
He did, but what is different? So sure, I mean, he was under its legal dominion. So if he were to die in that state, he would never see heaven. So that's absolutely tragic. What is new here is that now his body is under its jurisdiction. One sin led to others, and those others entailed an outright possession. I will tell you this: it will be much more difficult to get this demon out of him than it is to get it out of Justin, out of the kid. Because the kid, he did a ritual, but he didn't know that he was actually playing with demons. He didn't know he was opening a portal. He didn't know he was opening a door, etc. He wanted to be accepted by this gang. Okay. Gary knew. Gary knew what he was playing with. Gary knew the reality, and he knew God's rules, and he chose to ignore those rules. He chose to make his own set of rules up. And in other words, Gary is the greater demonic disciple. He's a great disciple of the devil in this situation. Now, devil comes in. You belong to me. I like you. You're a great disciple. So now you're going to serve me very intimately.
And Father, obviously, you've said you've seen old women throw 300-pound men across the room. It sounds like if you have someone like Gary, who I forget if he was just a powerlifter or martial artist, but he was not the guy you want to manifest. How much worse is it if you have someone like that?
In one sense, it really doesn't matter, because power in a possession, in a manifestation, is going to have a preternatural origin. So it doesn't have limits like human power does. But he is intimidating, and he is imposing, and he is really fit. He's a hulking guy. So there's going to be some obvious value added in his appearance.
Sure.
So combine his natural strength and his natural physique and natural appearance and the impression that makes with preternatural power, you got there a recipe for an Academy Award-winning performance that any demon is going to appreciate, and he's going to know how to turn that into an award.
Yeah. This is very unpopular. Gary breaks free and actually leaves the exorcism room.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, Father, just because I know obviously this happened to Father Wyatt. Have you ever had someone break free or get out of an exorcism, or had to do like pull the ripcord and just because it went so off the rails?
I've never had somebody leave the room that I recall. The person will make his or her way to the door for sure, like this is over, and of course that's the demon talking, and the answer is no, you don't leave until I say you pick me, and that's that. So it would be really bad to allow that person to walk out of the room in full manifestation. So first of all, how is that person going to get home? How is that? Who's that person going to encounter? If you allow that to happen, the devil's going to use that to cause maximum damage. So you need to have the person leave in their normal personal state. So apart from a manifestation, for the person's own safety.
And then, as we've often shared, sometimes when demons leave, they usually leave with a show. And in this case, he just strolled out of the chapel. And as he did, the rod of St. Joseph on the statue broke into 3 pieces, falling on the floor.
Yeah.
People didn't like that.
Yeah. So interesting manifestation. St. Joseph being the foster father of Jesus. Of course, the case begins with the father dying, Justin's father. You have the devil is saying something there, right? It's a mockery. It's a scandal, and he is trying. He is communicating. I'm the one in control.
Yeah. So, Father, the $1 million question that we get asked all the time: "Donde está Gary?"
Yeah. So, and it's natural that people would have that. So, look, it's not my case; it's someone else's case, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to talk about it for that reason, but also for the reason that the case is ongoing, and so as a rule, we don't talk about current cases, for the sake of the preservation of the individual, his or her dignity, the victim, but also it's introducing the enemy into a kind of live ongoing performance. And I'm not interested in that. And I'm not interested. He would get a delight out of that, I'm sure. And doubtless he would find a way to get some publicity out of that. So I'm just not interested in it.
Sure. And as a reminder, there are many details changed about this case. So if you have friends named Gary, you should not be worried about them, right, Father?
Guaranteed Gary's name is not Gary.
So don't worry.
And Gary might not be a male. Gary might be a female. Gary, this situation may not be happening in America or even in an Anglo country, for that matter. So you really don't know the extent of the details that we've changed.
Father, interesting in this case too, we had Justin's
Now, if I see Gary eating oatmeal, that's it, baby.
Oh, it's on. Game on, right? Because that actually would be the bigger
Well, he
sin.
deserves it.
Yeah. Father, interesting too in this case, you had Justin's mother present in the room praying with her son. Remind me, do you typically have family members participate in a loved one's deliverance?
Yeah, for sure. For many different reasons. It adds a comfort to the victim when that victim becomes aware or sees a familiar face. It also, there is power in the prayer of the family. There is that. I may not have just any member of the family. It depends on the hold and the manifestations. It sometimes can be really scandalous for that person to see what the demon does. So for example, a young child, never. I'm never going to have a young child in the room. Seeing his or her parent being manipulated and saying things, and the demon is going to have a field day with that. It is going to send comments his or her way, because he's going to be able to cause an incredible amount of damage in a child. Not interested in that. But people who are safe to have in there, yep, absolutely. There's a great benefit.
Well, I think the moral of this story, and there's a few. 1, no gangs and blood oaths, right, Father?
Yep.
If someone has hurt you, left you, or abandoned you, forgive them while not forgetting what has happened, but forgive.
Yeah.
And don't have an affair.
Yep.
And especially if you're having an affair, if you don't follow rules, if you forget to follow Rule 3, and you do, definitely don't call up Father Martin's and ask if you can go in the exorcism room with him.
Well, it was Father Wyatt's case, not mine. But yes, I would also say that as well. And just get your life right with God. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah. Also, just because you haven't had an effect happen yet doesn't mean there's not someone watching it. Like, heaven is privy to what's happening.
You bet.
There was a person at a church I went to years ago, and the pastor used an example anonymously, but there was a guy having an affair. What actually happened was he opened the story by saying, you never know what like tomorrow's going to bring, et cetera, right? And he said, this guy unfortunately passed away in his sleep very peacefully, but, just like went, and then when the woman found him, he had passed away. And the only downside is that he died in his partner who was having an affair's bed.
Oh gosh.
So
wow.
crazy rare, etc. But nothing's guaranteed. So he, the pastor's like, look, where do you want to wake up tomorrow? And I thought, well, that's a good reminder. So, right, you just never know. But heaven is watching, and they're rooting for you. And make sure to make good decisions. That Father's
You bet.
amazing. All right, folks, thanks for listening. And to all the Garys out there, we're Gary sorry.
Oh gosh. God bless you all.